We're in a big city where you have to drive across town. You have to be super intentional.
Yeah, and I live in the valley.
Oh, God.
I live in the valley, so there's nothing happening there. There's just gas stations and registered sex offenders.
Oh, my God. I was literally scrolling on TikTok and like, I kind of know of most of the podcasts in our space, but then you were a new face. And I was like, oh, who is this? Literally met within the week and here we are.
So I'm very honored to be here today.
Okay, we're both single.
Right.
Yes. I was telling my parents, do you guys worry for me? And my dad is like, absolutely not. Like, don't you dare lower your standards. Like, we have seen what's out there. Like,
we have seen what's out there.
Exes. I don't know if you went through this, but like, I literally went through a phase where I was stalking people on LinkedIn. This was pre me knowing that people can see how many times you view their fucking profile. Bro.
Okay, so these are...
Thank you for the matchas.
Oh, no worries. Are we starting already, I guess?
Yeah, if we want. Oops.
Yeah, this is from Canyon Coffee. All of my previous guests have been drinking matchas because it's just the norm now.
Oh,
if you see me on the streets carrying 2 matchas in a traveler walking into my car, you know...
you know what's about to go down.
Yeah.
Cheers!
Cheers, Hannah.
You.
This is... BULGOGI happy hour.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate collab. I'm so excited.
Oh, I like it.
Oh, whoa. Wait, what did you say this was?
It's matcha pistachio. I guess people who don't know me.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of BULGOGI Pod Happy Hour. This is the ultimate collab. This is like when
this is so
like
exciting.
Sweet Life of Hannah Montana happened. Mm-hmm. Yep, that ultimate collab. That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. That was it. That's So Raven, Sweet Life, and Hannah Montana.
So I'm very honored to be here today.
Yes, this is Melissa.
Yeah, hi, my name is Melissa. I'm also a fellow podcaster. Yeah. I have a podcast called Happy Hour with Melissa Cho, but instead of the word happy, it's spelled HAAPI because I interview API talent. Mm-hmm. It's been really fun, and I was telling Hannah and just most people who have been listening, I started the podcast 2 years ago. And then I neglected it because I got too busy. But recently, because of certain life circumstances, I brought it back in May. Yeah. And it's August now. And I think growth is steady. You know, I was like really just hoping that by the first quarter, I could get at least like 100 Spotify followers. But one of the episodes I posted recently, the one where you found me on TikTok.
Danny's Mud Shop.
Yeah. I interviewed Danny Durek, and that episode outperformed. I mean, like, just did better than I could have ever expected. I just think, like, thank you guys for sharing the episode and listening. But my podcast then has like tripled in size. But hello, if you're new.
Yeah. So I was literally scrolling on TikTok and like, right, I kind of know of most of the podcasts in our space, but then you were a new face and I was like, oh, who is this? And then I like, we gave you an Instagram follow and then you followed me back and DM'd me immediately. And I was like, oh, this is what I love about like social media, connecting with people. And like literally met within the week. Yeah. And here we are.
We went to Canyon Coffee. We split a carrot cake.
Yes. I was like, oh, okay, I'm trying to be I don't know if I'm trying to be gluten-free. I don't know if that's a thing yet, but I think I would like to reduce my gluten intake. Yeah. And so, we shared a gluten-free, I think it might have been vegan.
It was gluten-free. I don't know if it didn't say it was vegan.
Oh,
okay. I mean, sometimes I'll have stuff with dairy. Yeah. I don't know, because I have PCOS, so my diet is a little different than others. Yeah,
I mean, like after our conversation, I've been binging all of your episodes.
Me too. I've been listening to yours as well.
It's been so fun.
Yes.
But I know that you recently had one of your friends on who you know from Taiwan.
Yes.
And you guys got into a little bit of relationship talk. Mm-hmm. And there was like one specific line that you said that I was like, I need to ask Melissa about this because your girl just needs to like dig a little deeper, right? Okay. And so you were saying how like you think that a lot of like, okay, we're both single.
Right.
Yes. Let's
Imagine if the episode came out last week. Imagine if I'm actually not single anymore. No.
Oh my gosh, I would die. I would be like, who did you meet?
No, pivoting my question.
Yeah, how did you meet? Let me know.
Okay. Yeah. What's your question?
And so you were talking a little bit about how you believe that you're single because of your perfectionism and insecurity.
Yeah.
Can we let's delve. Let's dig a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think recently I've been trying to dig into why I think I'm single at this time in my life. Not that I'm reading so much into it because I'm kind of enjoying it. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of it does stem from insecurity and perfectionism. I was I relate to this. Yeah. But I wanted to hear a little bit more from you.
This is so interesting because now I'm being asked questions. What an interesting power play dynamic. No, but I'm asking you questions later.
Yeah, of course, okay. of course.
Yeah, I mean, what is so interesting is that my 2 previous episodes I've touched on perfectionism, which I have received messages being I strongly relate to that, which I guess everyone deals with an aspect of perfectionism. And I think, perfectionism is probably just one side of why I'm still chronically single.
Oh, chronically.
There's so many different layers, to it. And I think perfectionism is just one easy explanation. I think, for example, there's also a lot of insecurity, based on my PCOS and how my body's changed. And I also think growing up, my parents didn't really want me to date as well. I've never dated anyone in high school, and my mom just really wanted me to focus on, for example, books over boys, and I guess that sentiment carried on throughout college because you're also still in an academic institution.
Right.
And I feel at the time I was so comfortable with not needing to date. I was so comfortable with just living life without having a romantic partner, you know? And it's just I felt very fulfilled with my friends. I felt very fulfilled with spending time with my family. I felt very fulfilled with my 2 majors. I was a double major too, so I was incredibly busy. I felt very fulfilled with my extracurricular activities. So I thought that, okay, I have all these amazing things on my plate. I don't really need to prioritize a romantic relationship. Right. But I also think that it's come to this point. Well, I'm 24 now. Uh-huh. And I think now that you're out of an academic institution, you have more of your schedule. And especially me, I'm a freelancer. So I spend a lot of time in my room at my desk editing, just spending a lot of time by myself. And I'm a very social person. I love seeking new people to meet.
Yes,
gotta be home. And I love, I still love hanging out with friends, but it's obviously not the same as being in an environment such as school where you're just always around people. So I'm by myself more now.
Right. It's just less honestly, a lot of the opportunities where you're meeting people, class, casual hangs, all of that is missing. You have to be, we're in a big city where you have to drive across town. You have to be super intentional.
Yeah, and I live in the valley.
Oh, God.
I live in the valley, so there's nothing happening there. There's just gas stations and registered sex offenders.
Oh, my gosh. Wait, you were telling me about this, and I was like, oh, am I surprised?
Not really. My roommate, Steven, downloaded the Citizens app, which if you do download it, I think it's, you just have to be judicious with how much time you spend on that app.
Oh, yeah.
But he downloaded the Citizens app, and on the Citizens app, you can see the list of registered sex offenders. And we opened up the app in our neighborhood, and it lit up like a Christmas tree.
That is so
And you can see their
crazy.
mugshot. You can see how much time they did, what they did. And they're our neighbors. There's nothing happening in the back. Those are not admirable. Those are not prospects.
Right. Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, it's just there's so much intention that is required when you have to seek out a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
And also for me, I'm not on any dating apps too. So
I love that.
Hannah, I'm just and I prefer it that way.
Yeah.
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 I try my best to not, in general, download a ton of social apps on my phone because I already feel like Instagram drains me already so much. So if I download more dating apps, my screen time is just going to be abysmal. And like, you know, Hannah, it's like we focus on posting stuff for the podcast and we're like always trying to seek out talent. So we're always on our phones.
Yep.
But yeah, I just like don't want to invite that in. But also like, once again, just insecurity and just insecure of how I'm being seen online, because I feel like, yeah, dating apps, like I said with my friend in that episode, it's the biggest vehicle right now for finding a partner, but at the same time, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's just so much work and like each app has like a different culture and you hear a lot. There's just a lot of polarizing opinions on the apps. Like for example, for Hinge, I've heard just very polarizing thoughts. They'll be like, yeah, I found my best friend, like, you know, their partner, or it's like, oh my gosh, it was terrible, or it's like, I've just been connecting with people and I'm just friends with them, but you know, they're not like romantic or anything. So but like I just
pass. No, I mean, because I was like heavy on the dating apps for
were you on all
a couple
of them?
years. It was like primarily Hinge, and then honestly I think I started getting embarrassed that I was just being seen online. Right. And it's like, cause I've had that experience where like I met my last boyfriend on Hinge. And then after we broke up, right, I did my whole healing journey. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to get back on. And then like 2 years later, I'm seeing the same people that I saw like 2 years ago. So I'm like,
the same people in terms of like they're like their typecast boyfriends?
No, it's like literally the same exact guys, like same profiles, because I like had deleted my profile completely, and so it's basically like I'm starting new.
So it just basically feels like you're starting at square one.
Yeah, and I think it has become like a sense of like, okay, if I'm seeing the same exact people, I wasn't interested the first time, I'm not going to match with you the second time.
And you're so different now.
Exactly.
It's been a year? Or?
Yeah. And so I guess a bit over a year. And so, yeah, I've been taking a big dating app break. Yeah. And I feel like it's been so good for my brain.
Okay, good.
Like, you know how you were sharing?
That validates me too.
Yeah.
But I'm also on a different wavelength too. But I mean, I'd like to hear how it's been.
Honestly, great. I think like it has allowed me to like focus more in my friendships, like be more present, like, and even when it comes to like meeting new people, like just like friends, I think I'm like way more interested just as them as people rather than viewing them as like a potential partner.
Yes.
Right? Like when you're consistently on the apps and like you're feeding into like this like relationship culture, whatever, dating culture, I think that it like put me in a headspace where like even the way that I would interact with people in real life would be like, okay, are they single?
Yeah.
Like first, you know, but now it's more like, okay, are you interesting? And like, why are you interesting? Because I think everyone has like, you know, qualities to them that like make them an interesting person. And so, yeah, it's just like kind of like allowed me to like see people as people. And it's been really nice, really refreshing. I have so much brain space because I'm not constantly being like, why isn't he texting me? Like, why is this person not responding and all of that? But I'm kind of like you, like, I think I have like my perfectionist tendencies. Yeah. And I've started to realize that like, not only am I holding myself to my perfectionist tendencies, but I'm like holding other people to.
Yeah. This is what you talked about and that I talked about too. It's like, we like to hold each other to a very high standard.
Yep.
Which can be a fault, which can what?
Like be taken to a fault.
Be taken to a fault. Because everyone has different strengths, like I talked about with my friend in my previous podcast episode. And like, just to reiterate for people who don't know me, for the standards thing, let me know if like, I want to know what your angle is. But for me, it's that I hold others to very high standard that if they don't do something that I would do, I just resent them.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
And not like outwardly. It's just, not resent. I think resent might be the wrong word, but I feel very disappointed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like examples of like how that shows up?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like little things such as common etiquette, I think. I don't know. It's like the little things, like for example, if we go out to a restaurant for lunch and they're just these little things that you can do, like finding a table, or like, making sure the check is, received, or it's like, and when people are kind of just like sitting there being very latent, that's when it really icks me. Yeah. I mean, that's just one example that I'm just trying to like pull out of my head.
Right.
Yeah, I think when people don't act quickly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you tend to like get things done very quickly.
Yeah, and I also grew up in very big cities. I grew up in Shanghai most of my adolescent years. It's a very big metropolis.
Oh my God.
And so I was in a very fast-paced city. Yeah. And so I think that's also informs the way that I act and the way that I think.
Right.
And I think many people that I meet in the States, they maybe grew up in a suburban town or in a small town, or maybe people, for me, like I went to international schools, like, or maybe other friends who also grew up in big cities in Asia. I think also maybe it's just like their upbringing is a little different. My mom is very militant, and I thank her for that, and she's amazing. But so I think it's just kind of a mix of those factors. Yeah. So that's where like perfectionism and like holding others to a high standard comes from. So what about you?
Oh gosh.
when you hold someone to a high standard, like what's your example?
I think it's kind of like your first example. Like me and my friends constantly talk about like what we want in a partner, or what we like wish our partners had if they're like in a relationship, and they're always like preaching to me. I have a lot of my friends dating 5, 6, 10 years. Like all of my friends are in like long-term relationships.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Yeah. And so they're always telling me like, Hannah, you have to look for someone who's considerate. Like it's like always like, okay, considerism, like that is the number one thing you should look for. And so I think I am very aware when somebody like just like does the little things, right? Because like I am like used to my dad like opening the door for me.
Exactly.
Like,
are you an observant person? Because I very much am.
I think I am, and I am also not. It really depends. Like I think
selective observism.
I'm a selective listener. I'm a selective observer.
And it's good to be selective, It's good. Yeah. Okay.
And interesting. So I think like I look for like all the like I think it's the bare minimum is the thing. Is like I'm like, oh, it would only make sense for someone to go find a table, right? Like it would only make sense for you to grab utensils for the both of us.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking about guys too. I'm just for every one of my friends, guys and girls.
Yeah, and
guys, girls, gays, theys, whatever.
Exactly. And even like I went out to dinner with like my friends, and it was very like service oriented. Like it was like, oh, we're sharing plates. Like here, give me your dish. You know?
My gosh.
And so I think that it's the bare minimum, but It isn't in reality. Like it's something that you have to.
Is that so surprising?
Yeah, I'm like confused by it. More than surprised, I am confused. Yes. Like I'm like, oh,
my cortisol levels are rising right now.
Yeah, no, literally, I'm like stress hormones. I feel it. But yeah, it's just I think like humor, being considerate, like being thoughtful, like all those things should come in the standard package, Like I shouldn't have to add on extras. But I feel like recently I've just noticed like, oh, maybe these things are a little bit extra. Yeah. And so I mean, when it comes to like holding people to like, the standards I hold myself to, I think it's honestly been like a little bit extreme in that I feel like I'm being intolerant of people's flaws. Like
I feel that for me too. Yeah.
And I don't like that. Like I really don't like feel like it feels mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just like I never used to be like this, or at least I wasn't aware of it. And so now that I've become aware of it, I'm like, how do I fix this? But I honestly think like in all of the reflecting and like journaling that I've done, it's just like trying to be nicer to myself. Because like, right, like I think if I'm holding myself to these standards and that's the reason I'm holding others to these standards, like maybe it's the standards that are messed up. Like maybe I don't have to like constantly care for others. And like, yeah, maybe I just like don't have to like be perfect all the time. Like I don't have to like be upbeat and like energetic all the time. Like recently I think I've realized that like whenever I'm not like super happy or like I'm not having a good day, I will make the quote bad day worse by being like, why am I in a bad mood? Or why am I just like, I feel like it's a lull. And so it's like almost like I'm perpetuating.
You're a ruminator?
A little bit.
Yeah.
For sure. Like I do think like a lot of things in my life are dramatic. Like everything I go through, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like and I love that about myself, but also like it's hard sometimes when I'm like, oh, okay, like this is a big deal in my life. And so I guess I'm also just trying to find balance in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, to relate to that, they view me as a very positive person. And I completely am. But you were saying when you have like those bad days, for example, and I think sometimes, I don't know, I assume maybe people don't realize that I also have those bad days, because I think I'm always trying to be very effusive, you know, like very bubbly, and that's how I've always been seen. But I feel like I'm also in a season where I'd like to not dial it in, but to also bring other facets of myself, you know, a vulnerability, for example, that I think, you know, the two of us are working on, and yeah, just like shedding more light on stuff that's just not always super positive, because I feel like when people think that I'm like very positive, very, I don't know, capable, very fast at doing things, I think they use that to their advantage. They'll be like, oh yeah, Melissa is like cool with everything, you know? It's like, she can pick lunch, like she'll do this for us, or like she can do that. I'm like,
I feel like some boundaries are maybe being crossed. Okay.
Yeah. I'm actually, this is like, honestly, like looking back at myself, maybe even a few years or just a year ago, I'm like, wow, I was just too nice. I'm just too nice to people.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So have you like tried to like bring in, you know, the other sides of you and like show people like, oh, I'm not so one-dimensionally happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's happy hour has been a great tool. Has been a great tool for that. And also, I mean, the past year, I've just been, like I told you, going through my PCOS journey, and that has really changed my life. It really has. And I feel like even though outwardly it may not seem that way, but it's definitely more of an internal battle. It is a physical battle too, in terms of like, I went through a period of cystic acne.
Oh, no.
And I grew up with clear skin, and this is something that I also talked about with one of my previous guests, Jisoo Kim. Like we both talked about our acne journeys, because wow, stress manifests in so many different ways, you know? And for anyone who struggles with like anxiety or depression, that will manifest in your body. That just, it'll just catch you by surprise. And yeah, I had cystic acne for a whole year. And like I said, I've always grown up to be a very positive person. I'm very grateful that I grew up with very positive mental health and amazing family, very supportive family. But it was when suddenly like PCOS just like, I think it was like it slowly crept up, but then the icing on the cake was like the cystic acne. And once again, like bringing back to our initial conversation of like, I'm in a season where it's like, oh, you know, finding a partner, bam, cystic acne. I'm like, the heck? Like that is not helping
like I'm
me.
looking in the mirror. And
exactly.
Like,
and for me, like I said, I hang out by myself a lot in my room because I work there all the time. In your room, you have all these mirrors, and it was just very dissociative, you know, looking at yourself and criticizing. And once again, added with the perfectionism, added with the holding yourself to a high standard. It was just, I was no match for myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I was, and it was only until then that I really started to realize that, oh, I think this is what being depressed is like, you know? And with my friends, I tried not to show that part of myself, because at the same time, I also think that like, if you don't want to like show a side to yourself, like, yeah, like that is your agency to do that. You don't have to always be like super sappy in front of people.
Right.
And so I was just like in my room, I was, you know, I'd like cry myself to sleep a lot. And it was like not getting, I would try all of these like skincare products that had all these active ingredients that were just making my skin flare up worse. And that was also before I realized that that was before I was officially diagnosed with PCOS. So I was still eating gluten, dairy, eggs. I actually have a sensitivity to eggs. It's a little better now. I've kind of like trained, your body kind of adapts. But yeah, I was having gluten and dairy, and I grew up eating those things in Taiwan. But I feel like also for anyone who's like an international student, I feel like the culture shock when you come here is the food. It messes up. There's so many hormones and there's so many like different pesticides put in the American food system that, like, when I came here from Asia, where like food is so accessible, it's like cheaper, and it's also like the ingredients are nicer.
Yep.
I come here and I just feel like my hormones completely were put in dysbiosis, and I feel like, it just was very, very challenging internally last year. And right now I'm just looking back and very proud of how far I've come, and the amazing support that I've gotten from the holistic health care practitioners that I've went to. My skin has definitely cleared up. There is a bit of scarring, but I'm like looking back at my acne journey, I'm like, okay, it's like way better now, which I'm really excited.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's still lots to be improved upon in my journey. And so sometimes I feel like, we can talk about this too, sometimes I feel like I'm very behind in life because of all the stuff that was put in my life.
Hi babies. Hi cutie pies. Hope you guys enjoyed that little cliffhanger. But yeah, in part 1 of our conversation, we spoke a little bit about dating, and in part 2, me and Melissa are actually getting into like feeling behind in life, our careers, what our dreams and aspirations are. And so if you guys want to check that out, that is living on Melissa's channel starting the 6th of September. So it'll be out tomorrow for those of you listening on the day that it comes out. But yeah, please go there, support her, support our fellow Asian podcasters, and we'll catch you in part 2.